that if anybody's in a noisy environment that they mute, but I don't hear anything on the line yet. So, welcome everyone. My name is Karen Rossen from the DESARA Group, and the title of our webinar today is Internal Auditors, Staying Engaged and Building Skills. Up to now, before we started the recording, I got some input from some folks on the line, and I've also done quite a bit of research with my clients and members of associations I belong to find out what other people say, and that's the wisdom that I want to share with you today, what wisdom I may have. I've got over 15 years of experience in establishing and implementing quality management systems, and I've been a professional trainer for registrar auditors, for quality managers, and for internal audit teams, and a fair amount of my work has been working with quality management systems certification and program revitalization, where I go in and not just work with audit teams, but I work with the managers, the functional managers, and say, hey, why are you feeling overwhelmed by procedures? Why are you not responding to corrective actions? And we get to the meat of things and straighten things out so that the system really is the way they do business rather than just the way they're supposed to do business. I see a hand up from Sue. Sue, do you still have a question?
No, I was just testing it.
Just testing it, okay.
Sorry
We
about
put all
that.
the hands down, so everybody's down. I've actually participated in writing a quality management system standard called TL9000, which is for the telecommunications industry, and I'm certified as a master trainer and an expert on that. And I got my MBA in quality management some years back, but I come to this from an industrial engineering background and working in production, working as a quality manager, as do many of my colleagues. If you've been to our website, you can see that we really focus on business effectiveness. And today, I think we're going to be talking about management system standards. We do a lot of these different standards and related standards that aren't even up here. I'm working on one with forestry standards for sustainability right now. So lots of different standards. We customize our training. It's not just off-the-shelf stuff. We tailor it to the needs of your organization. And we work on advanced training and establishing systems that really are effective, the way we do business around here. We work with auditors and we work with audit program management. And then we also have programs for leaders for leading quality, business process improvement, just solving problems when some big customer problem has gotten to the field, for example. And we have Lean and Six Sigma training and ongoing program revitalization. So that's a little about me and the organization that I work with. But today the topic of our conversation is internal auditors staying engaged and building skills. So if that's really the goal, I look at goals to achieve, at the keys to achieving any goal. First of all, asking what do we want, why do we want it, what does success look like, and what are we willing to give to get what we want. Now, I don't think those 4 questions are unique to me, but I first experienced them in that systematic way in 1995 when I wanted to run a marathon. And simply saying I wanted a medal around my neck was not enough to keep me running through the 100-degree days in Dallas over the summer, getting ready for a fall marathon. So when I said, what do I want and why do I want it, I didn't just think about, you know, the sense of accomplishment. It was about getting my life more organized, getting more of a commitment to eating right and sleeping right and keeping fit. It was about becoming more persistent on goals and self-motivated, doing something that nobody required me to do. And when I had all those whys down, the things that why I really wanted this, and a picture of success, which meant meeting all my training plans as well as standing at the starting line ready to go, then it became pretty easy to say, what am I willing to give to get what I want? And I put that out here to say that unless you as audit program leaders or auditors or functional managers can put it out there, what you want, why you want it, and what success looks like, it's unlikely that you're going to get the buy-in for the business and the people involved to give what it takes to get what everyone knows they want. And they may not even know what they want. It may simply be seen as check the box and keep me out of trouble with the auditors. Now, in a workshop where I would do this with people who are leading a program or pulling together, revitalizing a program, we would go through these in kind of a Socratic method. You know, I'd ask questions. I'd elicit from the group. I'd find out where the real temperature is for the organization and what the auditors are saying. Well, this seems like what the business wants, and here's what I think I want, and here's what I'm actually getting. But in a 1-hour webinar, just to get some thoughts out there to give you something that you can really take and use with your own groups if you want to ask these same questions, don't give them the answer sheets, okay? But here's what I put out there in What Do We Want? And this comes from the research I've done with my own clients and trade associations and so forth that I've been involved with. Well, I break it down into what do we want being two pieces. What does the business want from the internal auditors, or the internal audit program, and what do we think auditors want for themselves? Why would they stay engaged? And I say, what does the business want from internal auditors? We need to ask, what benefits do they seek from having audits, and what are the performance expectations? Has that been spelled out for the audit program, or is it really kind of shaky, just don't let us get a nonconformity from the registrar? And then when we say, what do we think auditors want for themselves, we want to know what attracts them to become auditors in the first place and to remain internal auditors. And it better be something more than my manager signed me up for it. Because if that's the case, it's going to be pretty easy to answer what makes them quit. And we also know that for them to remain engaged and to be willing to build skills, they have to be getting certain things from the process owners, from the audit program manager, and from the functional leaders. If we have consensus on these answers, then that will guide our approach to developing and retaining the auditors that we really need in the business. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thank you for saying that, Sue. You know how I feel. Where I know your voice. I think that was Sue, right?
Yes, it was.
I do appreciate a little chatter in the background because I'm always afraid that I've gone dead. It hasn't happened, but I've been afraid. So I would encourage you guys to take these questions to your own group. Ask these of your own group, of your own small group if you're, say, a quality manager, or of your management staff if you're a functional manager. And here's some of the answers that I've come up with from talking to people. First of all, what the business wants is, well, keep us out of trouble with the registrar. And they want an objective view and an educated view. So they don't want beginners coming in there and saying, did we follow the letter of the ISO 9001 standard? They want somebody who's going to go in there and give them helpful feedback and highlight good practices so they get credit for the things that have changed that are good. Also verifying the things that were supposed to change actually stuck. They want auditors, the business needs its internal auditors to identify opportunities for improvement, because all too often when a third-party auditor comes in, all they can do, they can't consult with you, but they can come in and say, you meet the standards, and somebody will beat them out of, just say, don't write that down, and they won't, areas where they may have a weakness, but they do comply with the standard, where the company complies with the standard. And then what the business also wants from internal auditors is, of course, finish the job on time, fulfill your actual responsibilities, and that would mean that people know what their responsibilities are. So what the business really wants from internal auditors is the auditor's continuous involvement, and they want enough good people to get those goals, not the constant turnover where we're constantly training people. So looking at it from the auditor's perspective, though, what do we think they want for themselves? Why would somebody sign up? Well, look back. If you're an internal auditor, what made you sign up? And some of these will probably ring true if you weren't just told, go sign up for this. One thing is, when you're an auditor, you'll get a better understanding of the business. You'll see things outside of your own area, and you may get exposure that can help build career opportunities. I remember when I was first asked to be an auditor, I didn't really have, I saw myself as a leader from the things that I'd done in my career, but I just hadn't moved into a managerial role. And so becoming an auditor and then a leader auditor gave me, scratched some of that itch for wanting to have an influence on the business, wanting to have exposure to managers, wanting to be able to make a difference, make a contribution in a leadership capacity without having direct authority. And in order to do that, I needed a well-defined process. I think we all want, in any job we take on, clear expectations. We want the training to do the job. We want effective tools. We don't want to have to reinvent the wheel or figure out the process as we go along. Mm-hmm. We want the work to be valuable. We want to have time to do the work properly from start to finish, not have it be worked in overtime and weekends that we're not compensated for. And, of course, we want cooperation from the auditees and from the people responsible for corrective action. We don't want to be the police going in there and begging people to take action, threatening people that they must take action. Auditors really want cooperation and to add value to the business. Like I said, the next thing to say, to get people to do these things, it's not enough to just know what we want. We need to say as a business, why do we want to do these things? What's in it for the business to ensure that auditors are engaged in developing? So those of you who listed things that you're having a hard time getting the time and commitment for training, for ongoing development of your auditors, whether you do it internally or with external resources, or for people to just want to stay involved, ask what's in it for the business and give the people recognition for that. You know, recognize that it's out there and work towards providing it. And then ask what's in it for the auditors to remain involved over time. Are they doing it under threat and coercion, or are they really getting something out of it? Well, you know, how likely would it have been that I would have followed through to the goal of running a marathon when I had to train in the middle of the summer or train in the dark when the weather got bad, if I didn't have enough good reasons to get out there? Mm-hmm. So work with your management team to say, hey, is this a value to us? Because if it's not a value to us, if there aren't things that we want and reasons that we want them, heck yeah, let's just do the bare minimum. Why knock ourselves out? So get them talking about what's in it for the organization. And here's some of the answers that I've come up with as I've talked to people through the kinds of workshops that I lead to revitalize audit programs. Well, first of all, the business wants to make sure that auditors are engaged in developing, because it's expensive to constantly be recruiting and training new auditors. You don't get a lot out of them when they're in the early stages of the learning curve other than enthusiasm. They may not be finding a lot of good stuff, or actually bringing in some new blood periodically is important because they will look at things with a different perspective, but you need that ongoing core of people where you rotate a few in and out each year. Because the experienced auditors are more efficient, they're more effective, and that is only if they remain motivated. The good auditors, those valuable players in the business who participate as auditors, will give you better insights that help the business. They'll give you that objective, educated view. It's valuable to the business to have them engaged in developing. They'll do their work on time, and really, if you've got engaged in developing auditors, it's likely that they'll take those skills and transfer them to other areas of their own work and transfer them to some other people and coach other people along to be more effective and efficient in their work. Now then look at what's in it for the auditors to remain involved over time. This shouldn't be seen as a one-year community service and I've done my stint and I'm out of there. You want them to see that they are continually gaining skills and increasing their exposure over time, hopefully furthering their career goals. So the more people stay involved in the program, you'd like to raise the bar a little bit and let them do some different things with more responsibility over time, mentor new people, get involved in some areas they haven't seen, maybe do some things like supplier audits, if that's important to your company, to go out and audit suppliers or audit other even internal suppliers to your business. If you've got a corporate arrangement where maybe you've got a corporate purchasing department and they can participate in auditing the corporate purchasing department that supplies you with parts. Auditors will have the incentive to remain involved over time if they appreciate in participating on a cross-functional team and getting out of their own area periodically, those who like a little variety in their job. As an internal auditor, they'll have relationships that they otherwise wouldn't have. If they feel a part of the team of auditors, if they get to go on trips, even if it's just a 2-hour trip across the campus of the business, they get to build relationships with people they audit with and people they perform audits for and people they work on corrective actions with. So for those who want that sense of belonging, that sense of connection with other people, that can be a powerful incentive for staying involved. Travel can be a mixed feeling. People who are always out doing all kinds of audits may say, please let me stay home. But for those who never get to go anywhere, business travel can be very broadening. And like I said, even if it's just down the road to another building. One thing that's in it for them is the recognition for going beyond their basic job requirements. It's great if the company can pay them for going beyond their basic job requirements. But really where you're going to get that long-term commitment is where they feel the intrinsic reward of knowing their contributions matter. All right, look at that last one. Mm-hmm. If the auditors are going to feel the intrinsic reward of knowing their contributions matter, then the audit program better be of value to the process owners and the functional managers who are getting audited. So there's got to be a real collaboration between the auditors and the auditees, between the audit program manager and the business program manager. And that's what we're going to talk about next, the third key of what does success look like. The business has to actually recognize what they should be seeing when they get there, so that the people who are being audited can say, hey, that really was worthwhile. I'll tell you a situation that we're in with a client, just a little story. And I know when I attend webinars and stuff, I get quite a bit out of listening to the stories. So first I'll tell you one story about a client of ours who they had a really weak audit program. When I went in to do an audit refresher workshop with them, I had all their auditors in the room with me. Now, this was not a huge company, but $100 million company, and they had several hundred people involved under the certificate. And they said, well, we'll send our administrative assistant to the vice president of the site. We'll send one of our business analysts, basically an accountant. We'll send a facilities manager. And, oh, yes, we do have the quality systems manager. So those were the 4 people who were auditors and were going to be refreshed through this training. We knew there was some trouble there, and what came out of that as they got refreshed was they said, Karen, we do software development in this company. We run a data center with computers and lines that reach all over the United States. We may not really understand what these processes are that the engineers are doing that we're auditing here. You can teach us all the skills you want, but unless we have some subject matter experts out there, we're not going to be real effective. So they felt truly undervalued in what they were doing. They really were checking the box, going through and finding records and documents that didn't have signatures or the proper date on them or weren't filed in the right place. They were defeated. What we wound up doing with that client was we talked to the manager in charge of the quality management system when we said, is it worth it to you to train up your software engineers, your systems engineers, integration managers, and so forth, your project managers? Is it worth it to you to train them to be auditors so that you can get valuable feedback on your program? And the guy said, frankly, no. We need to stay out of trouble with the auditors. We'd really like some expert advice on what kinds of things will help us do a better job, but those people are overwhelmed with the work of just getting the product out as fast as we can. I don't think it's in our best interest to train a whole lot of auditors. So we came up with a program for them where we went in as basically subcontracted internal auditors. And within the DESARA Group, we have a number of us who know that business, know their business objectives, know their managers, have worked on other projects with them, and we can go in and perform their internal audits for them and truly be independent of the process. We don't work for any of the people. We didn't make any of the processes happen. We may have helped them define and implement the processes and come up with process measurements, but we're truly independent, but we're not holding a certificate over their head. And what they came up with was they actually value it when we come in. They know we're going to give them feedback that they want. And as for those, for the accountant and the facilities manager and so forth who are trained as auditors, they accompany us. They run the audit process of who's going to get audited when. They take care of the paperwork. They schedule the people. They learn a lot about the business that they can contribute elsewhere. But they realize that success for them as a company did not involve having a whole staff of subject matter experts trained as auditors. So that's an example of going through and saying, what does success for our organization look like? So when you look at what the process owners and the management team need to look like when you've got a successful process of engaging auditors and building their skills, the reason I brought up that scenario was that when we go into that client, those process owners and management team members know that they are paying for us to be there. They're not getting volunteer effort from members of their staff who are just going to make up for the time elsewhere. They say, hey, when you come in to audit us, here are the objectives we're trying to reach. Here are the concerns we want insight into. We want to know how we launched this product following all our processes and still had engineering change orders go through after the fact. What happened? What went wrong? Why are we not following our processes if we're following them, or are the processes bad? So the auditees, the managers, acted as clients to the audit team. That's one of the real characteristics you see in a successful program, is that the people who are being audited want something for their money. So when you're using internal auditors, you make sure that the business understands they are spending their money to get these auditors in there. These people are doing something that they otherwise would not be doing. They've got their real jobs. They need to cooperate as if they're paying for the audit. That means they need to provide access to their people, their processes, their data. When they're paying the DESARA Group to come in and do audits, and we do that for other clients as well, either in the form of a gap assessment or a readiness assessment before a third-party audit, or just to beef up their internal audit program when they get behind. So we have all different levels of going in and participating with audits. When a company knows they're paying us, they're paying the consultants to fly in from wherever and audit, you bet their people are there, are not involved in other meetings, except for the time where they were all called to Washington, D.C. to answer for a big quality problem they had with a government product. That was an interesting audit. We regrouped on the fly. Anyway, they are acting as clients for the audit. And then when they've paid somebody to come in, when they care about the results, process owners and management team members act on audit reports in a timely manner, because they look at those audit findings as valuable sources of input for their changes that they need to make. When they don't get what they want out of us, or when they feel like we needed to be more specific on something, or we're too nitpicky in another area, or went into something that is well past the need for change, means there was a disconnect in what we went out there to look at and what they wanted us to look for. So they darn well give us constructive feedback, and we make it right. And that's what you should expect of your auditors, to accept constructive feedback if the audit doesn't reach the goals of the auditees. And you should expect your auditors to act as service providers to the business. Let them get that taste of serving a client. The process owners and the management team show appreciation to auditors when they get what they want. Now, wouldn't it be nice if like one person said before the call, if the auditors actually get tangible rewards? Well, even if they don't get tangible rewards, showing appreciation rather than showing up for the meeting, responding with a memo to the auditor's boss saying, hey, this person did a really good job, stopping them in the hall and say thank you. Those kinds of things really matter. And then encouraging and supporting their own team members to become and remain auditors and return the favor to other departments. Those are all examples of characteristics of process owners and management team members who are really contributing to the success of the program, if you're going to have engaged auditors who are building their skills. Now let's look at what success looks like from the auditor perspective. What are their characteristics? Well, they stay. They audit over a long period of time because it's valuable to their career. You see auditors who are auditing are valuable players. They're people maybe who have been a program manager or a production manager or a key engineer on a project who say, I want to help make things better. You're not taking expendable resources. So I like to see up-and-comers participate as auditors, and I also like to see long-term continuity players who have seen people come and go. They've seen projects succeed and fail. They've seen customers satisfied, and they've seen customers complain. They're people who really want to make a difference. So the auditors are the valuable players, not somebody that you say, oh, get Charlie. He's never doing anything out there. When you have those valuable players, it doesn't matter what they're doing in their job. They are enthusiastic. So you want to see auditors who are willing to be assigned to audit frequently. I've seen places where auditors audit once a year. They're not building skills. They're not engaged. They're not learning. You're basically retraining them every year. Good auditors have the enthusiasm to prepare, to go and talk to the process owners, to go and talk to the management team members, to look at past audit reports, do thorough preparation, and then to follow through on the audit, not leave it to the audit program manager. And if they're enthusiastic, they're going to be on time with their deliverables, and they're going to continually work toward improving their own skills and to passing on the knowledge they have. So these would be characteristics of success. If you can say that your audit program is truly getting the kinds of auditors you want, you'd see that level of enthusiasm. People ought to have a vision in their mind of this is what we're going for. Good people who are enthusiastic, who are welcomed by the auditees because they're helpful. And good people, when you have a successful audit program, the auditors are a cohesive team, and they're viewed with respect by the business. It's not, uh-oh, here come the auditors. It is, oh, she's on the audit team. You know, that's a good thing when you're interviewing somebody for a cross-functional job or to be on a project. It's known that they're auditors and they do a good job. So if you can't give them tangible rewards such as so many dollars per audit, the token rewards such as the appreciation luncheon or the, you know, the certificate for the wall or whatever it may take, those rewards, if they're met sincerely, those matter. You know, the letter to file that says you did 6 audits this year, you did 2 audits this year, you know, did everything on time, whatever the characteristics are, let them know they were appreciated. Okay, and now I want to get into the management of an audit program. What is the business willing to do to get what we want? So as a marathon runner, once I figured out all those reasons that I wanted to run and what success would look like, you know, so many miles per week and such a finishing time, which, by the way, was 4.5 hours. For my first one, that was the goal. I finished a little closer to 5.
Wow, that's great.
5 hours, yeah. I was pretty dead, so it was a multi-year process, and I've actually run. I have started 8 marathons, and I'll leave it at that. Because my process goal for every time was to be prepared to stand at the starting line, come what may, freezing snow or injury during the marathon or whatever. My goal was the process of preparing for the marathon. That was the most valuable part to me. Wearing the medal? Nah. Got a lot of T-shirts already? Nah. Just wanted to be ready. So when it comes down to what are we willing to give to get what we want, how many workouts a week, how many dollars in shoes, am I going to hire a professional coach? Same thing happens for the process of auditing. What are we willing to give as a business to get those results that were on the previous page? Wouldn't it be nice if we had all that stuff? Would it be nice if everybody got what they wanted?
Yes.
So first of all, it's a matter of defining objectives and making the short and long-term plans to reach them. Defining the resources. I should have put those in a different order. Defining the resources. How many auditors is it going to take? From what disciplines? From what locations? From what levels within the organization is it going to take to get what we want? What will be our process for auditing? We don't want each person to go out there and invent their own method. I'm dealing with a company right now that has auditors going out into the field, and basically they're experts in the process of what they're auditing. They've been in the field a long time, but they're not experts in how to audit, and they're coming back with a mishmash, as my mom from the South would say, a mishmash of reports. You never, no 2 reports look alike, or there's no consistency. So what is your process for training auditors, for performing audits, for providing feedback to them? And then defining the measures. How will we know if we got that success that we wanted? What should the process generate, and how will we know if we're achieving those objectives? And then what you have to be willing to give to get that success is somebody, the one neck to grab to manage the audit process. So a strong audit program manager, which may be the management rep under your, that's the person you designate as your management representative, or it may be specifically a person who's the quality management systems owner. So for me, in one of my jobs through my career, I was given the responsibility, I've had several of these kinds of jobs. One was I was given responsibility as the management rep and the quality management systems owner for a business that had grown by acquisition. And they had, every little pocket of the business had their own way of doing things. They'd had a high degree of turnover, so everybody came in and was pretty much doing things the best they knew how. I mean, everybody wanted to do a good job, but we had engineers running down to CompUSA and buying parts to throw on systems ready to ship. And they thought they were doing the right thing. We had field service engineers who were pulling parts off machines that they had serviced in the field and throwing them onto machines that they were working on in another client. I mean, there were things that just can't be done, and nobody knew any better than that. So, pulling together a group like that was a real challenge because everyone was convinced they were doing the best work. It takes having somebody responsible for managing the process of overall quality management system, but also it may take a special person responsible for the audit program itself, managing that audit program, just like you have a production manager, but you've also got a supervisor of the packaging process. take that into your quality management system and say, am I really giving my audit program sufficient supervision, that somebody's the one neck to grab on whether this process is working well. Now, if you're in charge of a quality management program, and by the way, I just looked up and saw Lynn's hand up. Lynn, have I been ignoring you? Is there something you need to add here?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
A few minutes ago you said that you had auditors who understood and knew the process, they did it, and they went in to audit, but they just didn't have good auditing skills. I thought that auditors couldn't audit things that they knew because of a conflict of interest. They had to audit something that wasn't part of their knowledge base of a particular area.
Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. That's a really good point that I'll bet you other people on the line have. There's a difference between being independent of a process and being ignorant of a process. Okay? I could not go in, as much as I know about quality management systems and process management and so forth, I would be at a loss to go in and audit a chemical plant. You know, we've got in Texas here a lot of refineries. Put me in a refinery, and I am completely ignorant of how you make gas. Okay, I could probably go in and do. Excuse me.
So, for instance, like I have people who work in one department, and then they'll go and audit the payroll department. They know how payroll works, sort of, kind of, but they know they get their paycheck every 2 weeks or every month or whatever it is. But they're not that knowledgeable about payroll.
They need to study the process, and that's what we're going to cover in the process auditing class. Okay, that's one of the key areas when you take people into audit, and you've got a disconnect between independence and ignorance.
Right.
I mean, imagine going out and auditing a supplier where you have no clue about how they make the stuff that they're shipping to your company, and they say, here's how we do it, and you say, looks good to me. You just wasted a trip. Mm-hmm. So they do need to study the process. They need to know what the measurements of the process are, how you know what's good, how do you know how to fix something if it's bad. They need to understand whether corrective action is actually taking place, what corrective action looks like. They need to understand the organizational structure, roles and responsibilities. What they can't have is you can't take a person from the payroll department who reports to the payroll manager to audit that department. And it would be equally silly to take a payroll person and have them go out and do a manufacturing process if they say, well, I know what our product is. I know we've got machines out there. No, they need to have some understanding of what happens out there and study it. So where I was saying that we had an accountant auditing software development was ridiculous. The software development people would say, oh, and we did our test, and we did our code review, and we did this and we did that, and they're saying, okay, I see you signed a document, good for you.
Mm-hmm. So
Karen? Let Lynn finish her follow-on question, and then who was that who wanted to add another question?
Peter.
Okay, Peter. So we'll go from Lynn to follow-up question, and then to Peter.
Okay, so even if you work in a particular department and you're not aware of what a particular section of that department does, it's okay for an auditor from that department to audit that? That wouldn't be considered a conflict of interest?
You need to be independent of the management of the department. So it can't be that if you go in and audit your own manager's department and you give them the bad news, it could reflect badly on you and your job. That's a good rule of thumb there. I think Peter may have something to add on that comment because yours was a follow-on question. He jumped in there. Peter?
Karen, my question was basically, getting back to the question about conflict of interest. I can understand if it's a small department, but if you're a very large company, and there are many different managers, basically, are you saying that you wouldn't want somebody who's from one organization not to potentially be involved in auditing, another part of the same organization?
I'll give you an example of this. I was responsible for, I mentioned one of the jobs I had was this company that had grown by acquisition. Another was a high-tech company who had grown by extremely rapid sales. I mean, they just were making product as fast as they could because the market wanted to buy it. And so they were opening new factories, training new people, taking a production manager from one factory and turning him into a plant manager at another factory. It was somewhat chaotic to grow that fast. If you were working in production on one side of the factory, there was a pretty good chance you knew a lot about how to produce another flavor of that product, and you worked for the same plant manager, but you could go over and audit another production supervisor's area even if you worked for the same production manager. You're just looking for something that is not going to cause the person to hide something that they find, to cover up for something, to excuse something. You need that level of independence. So it really is a judgment call. One of my clients had a number of independent distributors that had about 20 people at each facility. Everybody wore a lot of hats. Finding somebody who was independent enough to do an audit was a real challenge for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they just had to be sure that the sample that they took was work that was not work that they had performed themselves. So they may have done that type of work, but they couldn't audit work that they had personally done. So,
thanks for that clarification, Karen.
Okay, so then who audits the internal audit program when you have...
Very good. You've got to have somebody out. So, for example, suppose the audit program is owned by the quality department.
Yes.
You need to get somebody with audit skills, somebody who understands process management and process measurement, somebody who understands the goals of the program. You know, what are we trying to get out of this business, out of this process of auditing, and who's independent of the quality manager. So you can't have somebody who works for the quality manager go in and audit that area. So it could be a peer on, probably a peer of the quality manager would be an appropriate person to do the audit. They both report to the same plant manager, for example, but the person auditing the quality program is independent, and then they've done audits themselves, so they're not going to take a sample that includes any audits they've personally performed or anyone who works for them has performed. Hard in a small company, isn't it?
It is, yes, because this is a pretty small company.
Yeah. So guaranteeing that independence, you need to just be very transparent about who's auditing what samples have been taken, who do they report to, and how do you keep from having people have a bias in what they audit.
Mm-hmm.
Are there questions on the process of auditing? Because that's where we're going now, and we've got about 15 minutes left in the call without a lot more slides to go through. I'll just show you the next slide then. Raise your hand if you have a question, if you're shy, because we do have about 30 people on the line at this point. When I teach people, it says explaining the analogy, I'll bet, I recognize some names here, I bet a few of you have been on the line for my Understanding ISO 9001 call where I say how I explained it to my mom and dad. Mm-hmm. But really when you look at what ISO 9001 says, it says you've got to have a documented system with records. And in ISO 9001, it says your internal audit process must be documented. You have to have a documented procedure for internal audits, and you have to keep records of it. And it lays out a bunch of specifics about how to do your audit program and refers you to a guidance document that some of this talk has been based upon, and what our basic internal audit course and our internal audit refresher course is based on. And it says that for your management system, top management is to establish the goals, establish the quality policy, establish the plans for the business. That's management responsibility as defined in Clause 5. And in Clause 6, top management has to provide the resources to achieve the goals. So if management is responsible for making sure we set up the processes to achieve compliance with ISO 9001, which means serving customers' needs as well as process needs, they darn well better make sure they've got an audit team, people trained to be auditors, people who are competent to perform audits, or that they outsource that, like the one company decided to outsource to us the expertise of performing audits and of understanding their processes. Next thing, after goals have been set and resources have been provided, you've got to have a process in place with methods for, well, ISO says for realizing your for making the products that you make, but that means the methods for all the processes of the system, one of which is your internal audit process. And for each of your process, you've got to perform and act on the checks. That's what Clause 8 of ISO 9001 says. I say Mom and Dad got it in 1957. They had to figure out what the goals they had for the family, or what are the goals that you have for the business, decide what they want, plan how they'll get it, agree how they'll know if they've gotten it. That's what I said in this talk. What do you want for internal auditors? How are you going to go about getting it? How will you know if you've gotten it? And it doesn't say there why you want to get it, but that's kind of implied there, and I think it's important to spell that out as a management team. It goes for ISO 9001, and it goes for the audit program itself. What are your goals for it? What are your goals for the resources? They have to get the stuff they need to do the job properly. Maybe they need templates and tools. Maybe they need an online system. Maybe they simply need some structure of an outline of what to put in an audit report. Maybe you want them to have prepared checklists of what they have to audit for. Maybe you want them to have consistent training before they go out, or refresher skills before they go out. So constantly review the needs and upgrade the stuff and the skills that are required to meet the goals of your audit program. And then plan and consistently do things in a way that leads to the results that you want. That's where you need an audit process owner. If you're throwing it on a lead auditor who just sees their role as completing an individual audit and they're not tied into a bigger program, you probably haven't met the intent of ISO 9001 when it says an audit program shall be planned and carried out. You need to actually have the defined methods, the procedures, and the tools and templates that they may need. And then how do we know what we want from the audit program? Do you have goals? And do you even have a goal in your audit program for auditor retention? Do you have a goal for audit client satisfaction? Do you have a goal? You know, some people have goals for timeliness of completion of audits, but do you have a goal for timely completion of corrective actions? Do you have a goal for opportunities for improvement being acted upon? A lot of times what I've seen, whether it's a third-party auditor or a supplier who comes in and audits you, a customer who comes in and audits you, or an internal audit, is the auditors will knock themselves out writing up opportunities for improvement. They really intend to be helpful. They're passing on things that they've seen worked elsewhere. They're pointing out risks that you have. And the guy who reads the audit report just goes straight to the corrective actions and addresses those and leaves those opportunities for improvement as, yeah, someday we'll get right on that. You know, kind of like when my mom tells me things that I ought to do around my house to decorate it better. It's like, get right on that, Mom. You know, she actually thought that my children should do a better job of folding the towels. And I'm like, Mom, your job was to run a household. I'm running a business as well as a household. The kids can fold them however they want. But what are the goals you have for your audit program? What are the client's needs? Think of the process owners and the functional managers as the clients. Ask them what they want. Come up with goals for the audit program and show them what the audit program has resulted in. When I see, and by the way, how many people on this call, can you guys just hit a random, not a pound on your keypad, but just hit a random key and tell me, would you like a webinar on effective management reviews? Oh, hey, I could have you raise your hand on your control panel too. But I heard at least a half a dozen little beeps there, so raise your hand if you want a management review, effective management review, because that's on my to-do list. And if you got all over the map, I'm seeing hands go up all over the place. Okay, we'll put that on the list for April. That many hands, I might be able to actually sell something on that. I love doing things for free, but eventually we do want to turn this into something that's worth paying for too. Okay, so finally, write down enough of what your audit program is so that everyone can understand the expectations, so that they can verify the jobs is done correctly. By the way, if you're not requiring your auditors to provide audit reports and to provide their notes of what they actually audited and to give an oral report, here's one of the things, I told you I'd give you guys some examples of what works well. One of the best run audit programs I ever saw had hourly employees who were responsible for auditing the printed circuit board shop, which was a supplier to every place else in the business. They were an electromechanical assembly place, design and assembly actually. So this printed circuit board shop knew that their boards were the heart and soul of the products that went out to customers. And these folks were I mean, they felt that if they built a board wrong, it could cause a failure in the field. They really had a quality consciousness about them. And the hourly employees, under the direction of a particular nameless quality manager, we won't mention any names here, took on responsibility for the audit program of that shop. They went in and, I mean, they treated it as a business unto itself, even though the ISO 9001 certificate was granted to the entire business. These group of about a dozen, and it was an honor to be on the audit program, and we recognized them. T-shirts, certificates, luncheons, we had things going on probably every quarter something happened. They stood up in front of, or the leaders of it stood up in front of the all-employee meetings with, you know, the come to Jesus. Hey, you guys are doing this badly, and you guys are doing this well. So they had recognition from their peers. People knew these guys took this seriously. They also, the audit program team, the audit team, each member of the team, they audited in pairs, who did an audit, stood up in front of their monthly audit team meeting and gave a report on what they had told the managers they'd found and thought the managers should work on. And if Miss Vicki came into my office with her hands on her hips and told me that something was wrong, you bet I was going to act on it, because I certainly didn't want Miss Vicki to stand up in front of the all-employee meeting and point out that the materials department hadn't completed something that everyone was relying on them to do in order to have this program in shape. So having checks on the audit program is critical, and giving the auditors the support that they need to get those things done, and letting them know if they're coming up with nitpicky findings. That step number 4, which is part of the ISO 9001 model, having the checks and having the goals that get fed back to management, having the resources to act on it, treat your ISO 9001 compliant audit program as a process just like any other process in your business, and that's where you'll get success. Okay, I've got, I think, one more slide here to tell you about. I think we had 50 people sign up for this today, which is good for, it's really good for one of our audits, and I think people have stayed on the line throughout, so it must be something there good that you want to do. What I'd like you guys to do, based on this webinar, whatever your role in the program, you may not be the program manager, but you work with somebody who is, you may be a functional manager who's not getting what you want out of the program, go to the person who's responsible for the program, or surface it if there isn't somebody who's really got ownership of the program, and say, let's answer these 4 questions for our audit program. Do some research in your own organization and explore ideas for increasing auditors' engagement in the audit process. You know, when you hired new people into your business, they probably worked for other companies who had varying degrees of success with audits. Ask them what worked. Ask them what didn't work that they're trying to avoid. You know, mine your people's intelligence for what could be better where you are. Find out what the auditors really want that will help them stay engaged. And I'll bet you they say more management more management support, and more management direction on what do you guys want from us as our clients. Then I tell you, and I say this at the end of each of our webinars, for internal auditor engagement and skill building, there's a lot of free stuff out there. I don't want to hear anybody say, gee, we don't have the money for training. You guys can go out there. You can do independent study like you're doing here, attending webinars online. We're not the only company offering this stuff. And if you've got a good local ASQ chapter, or you can subscribe to the magazine, those are great places to go without any travel. There's a lot of online stuff through ASQ that can support you. Get a mentor. Could be a friend from a company where you used to work that's not a competitor, or, you know, no conflict of interest. You don't give away secrets, but you can get a mentor within the company or from someplace else, and find resources on your own. That's good. Do what you can with what you have where you are. It's better if you can attend a live training course. One of the things that happens in a live training course is you step away long enough. Make a case to your boss if you need the funding. You step away from the business long enough to focus on the process itself. You get a lot of information, concentrated learning, write down your ideas, and come back with a report and an action plan and support needs, and what are we going to do to make things better? Make use of the training that you get, and you'll get to go to more training. The other thing is that we do 8 to 12 session learning labs with the DESARA Group on a variety of topics. So you know, you have my contact information through our website. We get groups of people together to cover an entire standard, such as ISO 19011, what should be in an audit program. we give you group-based coaching, and you come back and act as a learning, as a continual improvement group for each other, and learn from each other with confidential feedback of how to get better. It's very, very modestly priced. And I should be getting some information out to you guys on how to get involved in those. I haven't really done the invitations for those as I'd like. I've just been announcing them and getting them out to the people that I happen to talk to. So I'll get some written stuff out to you on those and how to get involved. Now, what I really recommend is the best thing to do, what I love doing with my clients, is going out to do an internal audit refresher workshop within your business. Worship within your business. I love going out every couple of years to a company. We just put it on the calendar. Let's do that again 2 years from now, where we bring a few new auditors in. We have managers who are the clients of the audits together. The new auditors get how to audit, and they get mentoring from the experienced auditors, even people who are rolling off the program. Everybody who's going to be an auditor comes back in for refresher training along with the newbies, and they show them how it's done. They show them what works and what doesn't work. We work within your own procedures, not handbook examples, not just, I mean, they see what they'll actually be doing on the job. We do that for 2 days. And then they actually perform an audit under my supervision and the experienced auditors and the audit program manager's supervision. They actually go out and audit. It is hilarious, you guys, to go out and have these people who have sat through 2 days of training. They've made up their checklists. They go out there to perform their new audit, and they are mute. They, you ask the questions. No, you ask the questions. I mean, get them out there using the skills immediately after training, and you'll get so much benefit out of what they do. And then they get feedback from me and from the experienced auditors on how their skills are progressing. They present their audit report at the end of the day. They got to write up an audit report. They see what it's like to work hard, get feedback from the audit recipients on how they did. And then you as an audit program manager, whatever the audit program manager is, follow up with them to make sure they do the final steps to close the audit. What I'd recommend you do is combine steps of the above. Give me a call if you're not sure where to start. But first off, just go back to this slide and ask yourself, what do we want from our auditors? Have we really set down the goals and how we'll know what it looks like? And have we really said, what are the resources we can scrounge up even without asking for budget to get what we want? If your auditees are not acting like clients of the audit program, they're not. You're wasting a lot of valuable internal resources. And I'd like to help you with that. So I'll stay in touch with you guys, and I hope that I can help you with some internal audit workshops. And I will work. I'll give you information on process-based auditing, management review, and more on auditor skill development, which I think we kind of sold short on the title of this without having enough time to go into it. I will stay on the line as long as people stay on the line here. I'm going to close the recording now so that you guys can speak frankly and say thank you